Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You are listening to Money on Tap. My name is Seth Crustman, joined here with Ben Brayshaw and Dan Mickelin. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you are joining us today for the first time, hey, just a little bit about us. We are all financial planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. And as independent financial planners, we really love that we can bring the full scope of the industry to you in a three-dimensional environment. You know, we talk about three-dimensional investing here, and it's really taking a look at all sides of what's available, what's important to you, and applying that in your strategies, in your plans. And we have a show for you today, protecting your assets. We're getting into wealth strategies, wealth protection strategies with you today. And we can't wait to do that. Ben, Dan, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good, Seth. I'm excited about this show. I think this brings a lot of depth to that kind of overall cover your assets conversation we had last week, and really giving people the specifics of really where to dive in and give you enough information to ask the right questions. Because I think when people talk about wealth preservation, the biggest issue is they have no idea where to start. They have no idea where the number one space is that they can realize the best wealth preservation for themselves. I mean, a lot of people think of their estate as being the case, and for some people that is, but it might actually be their business or their family farm or, any number of, areas that will create the greatest wealth preservation for them. And a lot of people, it's taxes, but they don't even know how to address that. And I think today we're going to start talking about a lot of these things specifically so that you can get into some core conversations with the professionals that either you use or us to say, hey, listen, should I dive deeper in this? So you're talking about this. This might be the direction I need to go. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's, we kind of get into the higher level of it than the last time we had this conversation. But, for people whose interests were piqued, I mean, now we're going to dive into what are the things that you can possibly do or consider doing to really preserve those assets. I mean, we were talking about how to title the show, and, I thought that was, it's an interesting conversation, but it's all about, hey, listen, how do you protect your wealth? You've accumulated it. How do you take steps to make sure that it's there for you and your family and gets spent in the ways you envisioned it, as you're working all those years, as opposed to, leaving yourself exposed to creditors and downturns in the market and all the different things that can kind of chip away at a retirement plan and, attack the dreams you've had for, probably decades. So, yeah, this is an important show. And for people who find themselves in that position where they think they've accumulated what they need, it's really important to tune in so we can help you figure out some ways to keep it.
I would even double down with the people that have not accumulated yet and are in the process. We're going to have some tips that are going to help you just shortcut some of the process here for you. Now, we don't talk about shortcutting a lot here. It's just basically what we're saying is you don't have to focus necessarily on everything at this moment. Maybe there's a few parts and pieces you can take forward with you into your current plan, start to apply that, and start to really make some headway. Now, for anyone out there listening to us today, we want to thank you for going to the podcast and just subscribing. It's free, and it's really painless to do that. When you do that, please send us an email at info@yourmoneyontap.com or just give us a call at 855-226-8551 so we can go ahead and send you some Money on Tap gear. And that's a lot of fun for us here at Money on Tap, just to include you and appreciate you for subscribing to the podcast. It helps us out a lot. And with that, it is time for Money in the News.
First up today, rate cuts likely at some point this year, according to Fed's Powell. This is from Jennifer Schonberger. We appreciate that, Jennifer. It's coming to us from Yahoo, by the way, Yahoo Finance. So the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, who's a guy we've spoken about quite a bit in the last couple of years, and a name that we've all gotten familiar with, and quite honestly, see him way too often for my liking. But here he is once again. Yeah, and this wasn't testimony or an announcement made at the upcoming Fed meeting, which is in a couple of weeks, but rather testimony in front of Congress. But essentially, what he's told us all to expect is that there will be rates coming, but not as soon as anticipated. So for right now, and likely 2 weeks from now at the actual Fed meeting, we're probably looking at another pause, or just either an increase or a decrease, just kind of kicking the can down the line here and waiting for some of the metrics that they've kept their eyes on, particularly the unemployment situation, to be more to their liking before the Fed will consider cutting rates, which was initially forecasted to be maybe as many as 6 times this year. But I think what the market's indicating is that they have the expectations down to more like 3.
Yeah, I think ultimately when we're looking at what's going on here in the market, and I've said multiple times I think they're going to raise rates, and not even raising rates and just keeping them flat for as long as they've been saying, first quarter we're looking at cutting rates. I don't know if you guys remember that last year. First quarter we're going to look at cutting rates and so forth. Well, they're keeping them flat. The issue is here, the market's soaring. The numbers are looking better than they are. And honestly, prices are still going up. No matter how much they report, still go to the grocery store, and every week we're spending more, buying sometimes less. So could we be shocked with a rate increase? It doesn't report that in this article. I don't know. They've said it so many times they're not going to raise rates anymore. I think the only thing that would force rates to raise is if a number of different items specifically that they cannot avoid do show the inflationary gap. But it's interesting because this article dives into something that no one's talking about. And I had said this earlier in the show a few months ago is, they're going to drop rates right before the election if they drop them at all. And ultimately, that's what this article actually introduces, is the concept like, oh, well, they might actually just be right in time for the presidential election. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit to be dropping in there now. But, the writing's on the wall. Powell's the Biden administration's guy. That's really where we're at here. So these guys want to keep their job. They want to look good.
Was that written on Trump's wall? Which wall was that written on?
Yeah, exactly.
We all know how rates really affect so much of our world and the economy. I think one of the pieces that may have more impact here, believe it or not, is that they're talking about requiring the largest or biggest U.S. lenders to hold greater buffers against future losses. So that would mean keeping more cash on hand. And understandable with all the bank issues that we've had within the last couple of years now, that they would even consider doing something like this. And this rule would be one of the most aggressive changes to how banks are regulated since the aftermath of 2008 financial crisis, criticized by both parties at some levels. But it's what they say is that it's important that they get it right and that they do it fast, and that if this is what's important to do, that they'll do it quickly and they won't hesitate to make those changes. I wonder how that would feed through our financial system, and really how much difference that'll make as far as making sure that the solvency of those banks is intact.
Yeah, I know that is a concern, and I think that's been a big issue. I've had a number of conversations with banks that they're looking for deposits. And they're not even banks that are having any sort of financial troubles, but this is all because of these conversations going on. We talk to lenders all the time, so that's kind of an interesting tidbit. But I do think we don't weigh in the power of the Fed. The Federal Reserve runs our world. When we really break it down, they run everything financial. It's like when the rates were really low, what did they decide to do? They're like, well, we can't charge as much money on the money that we have out here, so we're going to print a bunch more, and then we'll charge the same money, which doubles the amount of income we have. These types of concerns, the Federal Reserve has so much power, and the influence that this has. And Dan, I know you and Seth would agree with this. It's like the Federal Reserve, if they raise rates dramatically right before the election, it's not good for the current administration, right? If they drop rates dramatically right before the election, it's better for the current administration. So that is a conversation to understand these moving parts, because we talk about three-dimensional investing, and I think what our conversation here at Brayshaw Financial Group has always been, the thing that we always talk about, is how all of these things are so interconnected. It's really hard to process exactly how each thing is like this lever goes, that domino falls, this happens, and then the egg rolls down like one of those little game things that you look at. The complexity of the moving parts here, it's almost like we see them, wow, I hadn't thought about that impacting this and this impacting that. We have so many things going on our globe. The domino effect could go south so quick. And that's why we're starting to see some real concern. We're starting to see some kind of leveling on the S&P. We're hitting like 20 and 30-year highs for the S&P's growth week over week. I mean, we're seeing some crazy things that have happened that are just astronomical. And I'm concerned. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned because it's an election year. Powell and the Fed have a lot. I'm concerned about all the troubles in our globe and how those things could implode and cause major global problems for us. Watching the Fed over the next 6 to 12 months is going to be an extremely big piece to this puzzle for all of us and all of our listeners. And I would focus on the Fed because this is going to tell a lot about our economy and globe. And honestly, if a nuclear bomb goes off in Israel tomorrow, those rates are coming down, and we got a big world of problems in our market.
Yeah, the economy seems to be moving in one direction when the kind of geopolitical world's moving in another. So. At some point you think those two things would kind of true up, but not yet. So we'll have to stay tuned.
Well, hence the next article we have here with CNN Business. Dan always gives me the CNN. Unbelievable, Dan. You're killing me here. There's a gold rush on Wall Street, of all things, Crystal Herr reports. Now, this is really interesting. So after the last conversation, we have gold rising and hitting some kind of all-time new highs. So this last Tuesday, it settled at $21.41 per ounce. That's incredible for the price of gold. And they're just reporting about how all of the different pieces are happening. Is that gold, all of the currencies around it are being impacted. Bitcoin, which is to dub the digital gold of all this world. All these things are kind of rising, and we honestly believe, and all the issues going on in our globe right now are causing people to go to whatever they think is safe. And honestly, some of these things are as volatile, if not more volatile, than the market.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that I found interesting. I mean, certainly this is proof positive that there are some major players out there kind of exiting the market and pursuing that flight to safety, like you said, Ben. So driving up the price of gold. But I know we talked about this once before, but I'd honestly forgotten that Costco got into the business of selling gold, and they sold $100 million worth in the first quarter of 24. I just found it to be an astounding number, and the association between Costco and gold is it's still kind of hard to get my arms around. It's where you go to buy your, toilet paper, buy the 50-roll package, and they're selling gold at the same time. So strange kind of circumstance there, but, it is an indicator that, some of the kind of real money players on this planet are perhaps getting a little unstable, a little nervous about some of the conditions we're seeing, and they're making that defensive play.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see the market where it's at all-time highs, gold hitting all-time highs, digital currency hitting all-time highs, where at least gold and the market have traditionally kind of run opposite of each other. When the market's down, gold is the hedge. That's kind of that flight to safety for most of the economic cycles that we can look back and see. So I'm curious really to see what kind of correlation there is when we've had simultaneous rise in both gold and our market, and what we can kind of draw from that. I mean, not that anything historically is a conclusion for us today, but it is one that is interesting and certainly has, I would say it would raise some concerns around the risk of the market at the highs that we've been seeing, and where we are, like you were saying, geopolitically. It's just it's kind of a rough spot with a election in sight as well. And with that, this is fun. I think it's fun. Target launches a new paid membership program. And Fox Business, Daniel Genovese, thank you very much. So the Target paid membership program next month is a bid to boost revenue and make share market share as consumers remain cautious about spending. The new program called Target 360 will effectively compete with Amazon's Prime, Walmart Plus, and they'll add several upgrades to the existing Circle program and Circle credit card. So with the Target 360, members will get free 2-day shipping and ability to deliver it to their door or someone else's. And they'll also get same-day delivery for Target's delivery service shipped and its retail partners for orders of $35 or more. You know what? I think this is an essential move, really, for any of the players that are in the large retail market to really bring their store to the client's doorstep. And seeing them do this has me wondering what's next on their plate. Are they now going to move into entertainment?
You know, Seth, I was wondering the exact same thing when I read this article. I was like, do I have another subscription service for TV? Is that what this whole thing is about? I mean, I'm not a big Target fan. You guys know that. But I do think that this is kind of the right move for Target from a business strategy standpoint. I mean, they are the player for that. But I do think what's really interesting about this article that, you know, as long as you're spending $35, they'll do same-day delivery to your house. You know, I mean, you're out of, paper towels or something like that, or paper plates, or you're having a barbecue, and something. You're going to buy 20 other things just to get the $35, just to get the same day delivery, just so you don't have to run out because the hour round trip. I mean, I don't care if Target is 10 minutes from your house. It's a minimum of an hour from your house back home, no matter what. You go to Target. The store's big. You're walking around. You got to, paper towels are in one section. It's all spread out. So you end up, running around. I just think it's really interesting how they strategize these stores. So you have to walk almost the whole store to get all the kind of basic items. They never put anything intuitively together that you think, because they want you to walk more of the store. But this makes a lot of sense for them. Business-wise, it's really interesting. It's a kind of a surprise it hadn't happened sooner. But yeah, I think it's a strategy play, and if you're an investor in Target, I mean, this might be a good opportunity to look at that stock. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for them in general. But this kind of two takeaways I had. One, the local Target here in Bedford. I mean, the shelves are empty like 80% of the time. It's crazy. This place just looks like it's been ransacked at all times. So how are they going to deliver? Like, where's the supply coming from? But bigger picture is it's just amazing how fast that we can expect anything in the retail world to just appear at our doorstep these days. And we're going to thank Amazon for that and kind of up in the bar in terms of competition in the delivery world. But this instant gratification, I mean, order it today, receive it today, or at the worst case, tomorrow. It's just really amazing how far things have come for our economy and just the absolute speed at which things move. It's really incredible to think about it that way. But I think this is a good play for them. And the space they're in, just to be a competitor, they have to make this move. Everybody else is doing it, so they really had to do that.
All right, that's going to do it for us in Money in the News. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are into our Protect Your Assets show. This is a show where we're going to feature some wealth protection strategies and whether they're appropriate for you now. That's great information, and some of them are going to apply no matter where you're at and what your focus is. So we cannot wait to get into it with you here at Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Dan Mickle on a Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for professional guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Advisors are here to help. Our team of experts will provide you personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit us at BrayshawFinancial.com today and schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Yes, we are talking about protecting your assets, and we're laying out some strategies here with you today so that you can, if it's a first time getting introduced to some of these concepts, great. This is a great way for anybody that's just not really familiar with this world to just kind of get a little bit of information for yourself to, find out, hey, maybe that's something I should pay attention to. Maybe I need to give Dan and Ben and Seth a call and find out if my situation is one that would apply to any one of these. And I guarantee you that if you are in this world looking to retire or protect your assets, yes, these are important for you to pay attention to. And without fail, the first one that we talk about here at Money on Tap is planning, getting a financial plan. And, there's some great tools for the DIY person out there. And with that, I would say that's typically more of an educational opportunity, because when it gets down to really doing some of the planning, what we find is that a lot of the time there's just conversations that need to happen, and ones that haven't even been considered when we're starting to build out a plan and take care of all those parts and pieces that are important for you, especially when it gets to protecting your assets.
We talked about this all last show. Wealth preservation is, starts out with that plan. And this show is probably going to go down as like the ABCs of planning, because there's so many things that we're going to talk about today that are going to feel like, you're, hit by a fire hose here. But these are specific techniques that are asset protection strategies that are found when people are say to us, hey, Ben, Dan, Seth, I want to protect my assets. My wealth preservation is my concern. Where am I vulnerable? And those vulnerabilities are going to be solved by, a number of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I'll tell you that there are tertiary ways that these things can be used in lots of different fashions. So we're going to try to be as generic. It's going to be high level, but it's going to be a fire hose. The first one up here after planning is limited liability companies. A lot of people are out there, working, doing second jobs, have a, just making money and doing lots of different things or whatever. Or you own a piece of real estate and you're doing a rental property, or you have, you're renting a room in your house. Well, the first one is a limited liability company. People say, oh man, I don't want to open up a company. I'm just renting out a room. Well, limited liability companies are probably one of the most common, simple, and effective ways to protect your assets in today's world. Because honestly, someone slips and falls, you have insurance for that, but you don't have unending, unlimited insurance. Limited liability companies really bring the ability to add a shield. They add a veil in front of you that is what is considered unpierceable. The limited liability world inside the legal system, and for all you listeners, we're not attorneys, we're financial planners, but in the legal system, these limited liability companies are extremely powerful. They hold massive power. I've sat down with attorneys who have layered limited liability companies over them, and they're like, listen, you could never pierce, even if you could pierce it, you couldn't pierce multiple levels of a limited liability. So limited liability companies are extremely powerful. They're super simple to open. And if you own real estate, have a side job, this, that, the other thing, it's worth doing. Because honestly, the vulnerability of all of your other assets when you don't have a limited liability company veil in front of it can be extremely dangerous and financially very harmful.
Yeah, this is a huge component to the protection that you just want to garner for yourself. It's easy to do, relatively inexpensive. And to Ben's point, it really does make it very difficult for a creditor or someone with some pending litigation to really get after your assets. Which brings us to the second mechanism out there, which is an asset protection trust. All right, so the key to this is that the assets are removed from the control of the owner. All right, so you are giving up control of your asset to the asset protection trust. Now, in order to be able to do this, you can't have any pending liability, right? So you can't be aware of the fact that you're about to be sued. This isn't going to protect you from a tax bill that just arrived. So going back to point number one around the planning of any of these strategies, just to take a quick step back, you need to have a little bit of foresight, not in exactly what's going to happen to you, but more so, what are the potential liabilities, and start building these plans now, because these trusts and different mechanisms need to be in place before the issue arrives. But in the asset protection trust, you're giving up control of the asset, and you need to hire somebody outside of yourself to manage these assets for you. So if there are expenses involved and logistics based upon whatever the asset is that's inside of the trust, you need to give control. You need to cede that ability to manage that asset off to somebody else. So you really are taking a step away from whatever the asset is that you desire to protect. But once you've put it into a trust like this, your ultimate goals for that money or whatever that asset may be are going to be very difficult to derail. And here in the state of New Hampshire, where we're located and broadcasting from, this is one of the most favorable states in the union for this kind of a trust. I mean, state law varies across the board with all of these tools. That's why hiring a local attorney is very important for these matters. But it just so happens that here in New Hampshire, we have kind of the highest level of asset protection available to us through a mechanism like this. It's really an opportunity here for people who have some wealth looking to protect. And you don't need to be a resident, right? So you just need to have some relationship here in the state, and you can take advantage of these incredible tools.
Yeah, that's a good asset protection trust. We've had attorneys make presentations to clients, to groups of organizations and people and seminars. It's a very powerful tool here in New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, the fact that you don't have to be a resident of the state of New Hampshire to open up an asset protection trust. I heard one attorney say that New Hampshire is as close to, kind of that offshore sheltering that people talk about in the movies of the Cayman Islands. Like New Hampshire is this oddball trust state that has some tremendous power. And it's just very, very interesting. Next up is our family limited partnership space. And family limited partnerships are very, very interesting. And this is where, basically if your parents own a company, it's a valuable company, they end up transferring their assets to this family limited partnership. That family limited partnership then gifts shares. So the parents are the general partners in this scenario, and then the children or grandchildren are limited partners. So the parents own the power of the company. They still retain the controlling interest. But over time, they slowly gift inside the annual gifting exclusion shares of the company so they don't have to pay taxes to their children and grandchildren. And they do this over time to spread it out to deal with the estate taxes of a valuable company. Now, they may not be able to gift it all. They might not be able to do the entire thing. But the opportunity to do this and to create some movement of a large asset through the estate tax benefits, by using that annual gift exclusion, is really wonderful. It's a huge, powerful tool that is very rarely used. But if you own a company and you have your family, this may be a direction that could really open up the ability to avoid a lot of estate taxes on your business.
Great points. And with that, Ben, I think you also mentioned that, we're not attorneys, but we do have some great relationships with attorneys that do this work. And if that's something that you need some help getting some direction around, we're happy to provide that and get you in touch with those people to start to put some of these entities in place to protect your assets. And also, it's not always the case that a lot of the time people come to Brayshaw Financial already having those relationships, and we love to build relationships with the people that are on your team that are helping you put into place the best plan possible for you and your family when it comes to protecting your assets. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And while you're at it, thank you so much for going and subscribing to Money on Tap podcast. And when you do that, please get a hold of us. Let us know where we can send you some Money on Tap gear. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with protecting your assets.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. Our team of experienced advisors is dedicated to helping beginners like you build wealth through smart investing strategies. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com today to start your journey towards financial independence. Brayshaw Financial Group, your partner in wealth creation.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about protecting your assets today, making our way through several parts and pieces of asset protection. And this is not stuff that we really get an opportunity to just speak specifically to. I mean, it enters into the conversation on different places and points. But for you to actually get the layout here of all these different strategies and what they are, it's a lot, and it's fun. It's actually really fun to kind of discover with you some of the places where you might be interested in making sure that you're protected. And with that, one of the next parts that we wanted to get to, before we get going down that road, let's make sure that attorneys are involved on this. Okay, this is not the kind of stuff where you just head out the door and go and put it into place because you listen to the podcast or the radio show and that seemed like the right way for you to go. No, absolutely. Make sure that you have a qualified, somebody that works in this space, business attorney. There's estate planning attorneys. Call us if you don't know. That's probably the most important point to make right there. And then we can help try to get you in touch with the right people to put these pieces in place. But okay, so next we have up tenants by entirety. And this is another way to really simplify inheritance while maintaining shared ownership and survivorship benefits. So, it's really only between a married couple. Both spouses are joint owners and control the property. Both spouses are named on the property, and both spouses share equal interest in the property. What's beneficial about this is it really protects against liabilities. For instance, if there's a bankruptcy that one of the spouses is filing, well, they won't be able to attach the property to that. There's automatic rights of survivorship when the property is held in this tenancy by entirety. The property will automatically transfer to the surviving spouse, and this is bypassing probate. With that, there's some other entities out there that get thrown around quite a bit. What do you guys think?
This is one of the ones where the asset itself remains undivided as changes happen with the tenants to it. In this instance, it has to be a married couple, so there's only two parties, and if one passes, there isn't an issue around their share of that particular asset going in a different direction or control being ceded to a third party. It just simply transfers to the surviving spouse, nice and simple. So that's a kind of a preferred registration type on a lot of assets if that lines up with your goals, as opposed to some other ones, for instance, tenants in common, which in that case you can have multiple parties to a given asset, but each person there owns a certain percentage of the asset themselves outright. And if they were to, for instance, desire to sell, they could sell out their stake in the given asset to any party they choose. Now you have a new partner who may not, be welcome or invited to your asset situation here. And if they were to pass on, it would go to their beneficiaries, who again would be outside of the initial ownership understanding and structure. So it's very important that you choose the registration type carefully, to match your intents and everybody's equal interests and something like that. If there's four parties to a property and you want to preserve the right for any party of that group to sell their share without restrictions into who it goes, well, that's the way you want to go. But if you're more concerned about making sure that the ownership transfers to the other named tenants, or that you have some kind of control about who your future partners may be in this asset, then you want to pick a different registration type.
These registration types are really, really important, and I think there's couples who have put this tenants by entirety in place on real estate just so that there's you can't be forced to exit this, or you can't choose to exit. You mutually have to be in this together, and it's kind of like it's more of a lifetime commitment kind of titling to an account than it is anything else. For a lot of people, if you're for prenups and things like that, what people will do instead of doing something like that, they'll actually put a property tenant's entirety and say, hey, listen, we can both live here until we both mutually agree to get out of this thing. And that might be a way of getting away from some documentation and stuff like that. I've seen that happen. But in reality, when it comes to tenants entirety or joint tenants with rights to survivorship, when one spouse passes away, it just passes directly to the same spouse. So if you're wondering like, hey, I have a joint tenants with rights to survivorship account, should I have a tenant by entirety? It's all about exiting. And that's really where I think a lot of people get mistaken on that.
Retirement funds, yes, they do offer some tax advantages. We talk a lot about retirement funds. That's a pretty big part of this show most of the time. And but you may not realize that they're generally considered exempt from bankruptcy under federal law. They also might have some safety resulting, from resulting lawsuits or debts. But this is something that really depends on state to state.
Yeah, the government gives us a lot of benefits inside of this retirement account concept because they simply want us to save up our own money and be able to retire on our own without putting so much pressure on federal entitlement programs. So you get the tax benefits, you get the creditor and liability protections. If you are setting money aside specifically for retirement, make sure it's in a retirement account. I mean, that's a simple enough one, right? Make sure that you've taken that step and it's not just in some side account, outside of the retirement domain, which includes, 401k, 403b, 457, IRAs, Roth IRAs, all the different registrations that you hear us talk about frequently. If the money is earmarked for retirement, it's going to come with limitations when you make that decision, particularly early access prior to age 59 and a half. But if you've made that commitment on those dollars, put it in the right account.
Super important. Super important. Next up, and we've talked a lot about various, one of the things that's kind of just the misnomer, we talk about life insurance a fair amount, but insurance is one of the most fundamental asset protection strategies out there, and it can be used in a massive amount of ways. It's almost endless about the different types of tax advantages that insurance brings, which is why insurance has a great name, but it also can be that one thing that people are like, oh gosh, we're talking about insurance again. But if you are a physician or a lawyer or the doctor, big business owner, you own a big company, if you're concerned, like, hey, I'm concerned about my C Corp, S Corp, LLC protecting me. I've got potential malpractice claims. Life insurance can be a massive asset protection strategy. ILITs, which are irrevocable life insurance trusts, are one of the most commonly used asset protection strategies. And most of the time, people equate those with life insurance being an estate planning tool. It absolutely is. And it is used that way all the time. But there is an entirely different niche to the asset protection piece for retirement that the wealthy do not utilize to the core level that they can. Now, people have talked about life insurance, owning life insurance, building up cash value. You hear that word like, hey, you're going to build up cash value and so forth. But an irrevocable trust says, hey, you can't get access to it. And if you can't get access to it, the claims against you can't get access to it. That's why it's irrevocable. You don't have access. It is locked up, lock and key. You can't touch it. So you're the doctor. Well, I'm just going to presume you're a man and your wife. You're going to open up an irrevocable life insurance trust, and you're going to make your wife one of two trustees. So you can have co-trustees, and your wife has the ability to borrow cash value from the irrevocable life insurance trust. And the reason we recommend co-trustees is because it allows there to be kind of a breath between your wife and the beneficiaries, and the co-trustee can then make a distribution back to her. That allows you to do this. Now, depending on the trust, you have to write this stuff in the trust. Okay, you have to protect all of that, and sometimes you have to have beneficiary notification based on state and the type of trust that you actually put together. So there can be some little quirks inside this, but the concept is to build cash value, to pour that money into the trust, to build it into the life insurance and pull it out tax-free. Now, Because it's in life insurance, it grows tax-free, so the trust is not paying taxes. The money coming out is considered a loan, so it's a tax-free distribution, and it makes its way back to your spouse, in which you can then allow yourselves to use it to live off of in retirement. A wonderful strategy for you to be able to protect your assets and build an asset that, God forbid, something tragic happens, that you have something outside the veil of general claims. And I think this is a tidbit of just one thing you can do in the insurance world that creates both an asset and an asset protection all in the same time, done right.
Yeah, I think insurance is an underestimated and undervalued tool in this whole realm. Even if it's not inside of a trust, there are certain protections that get applied there. Certainly tax advantages for sure. The ability to access cash over time, either in an income stream or by making loans and withdrawals against it, that is non-reportable, doesn't come with the strings attached or the rules for qualifying for it that retirement accounts do. And it gives you kind of those back-end benefits if using the cash while alive as a income tool or emergency funding, any of those kinds of things. It simply offers you those other levels of wealth protection, which goes back to the core needs or the core purpose of life insurance, right? It's going to pay out a death benefit if you pass, which can offset estate taxes without having to put it inside of a complicated trust. It has many of the products that we offer these days, particularly in the IUL space, the Indexed Universal Life space, has living benefits for things such as heart attack, stroke, cancer, a whole number of illnesses that could befall you, which would threaten your wealth, which would increase your medical costs. This gives you a place to dip into it and preserve the rest of those assets and cover some of those expenses. And these can all be achieved relatively inexpensively compared to buying life insurance and then adding on long-term care, which is kind of more specific to the long-term care, nursing home, chronic condition type of a situation. So these other protections that insurance offer that will simply make cash available to you to get through some kind of an unexpected health emergency, as opposed to draining your wealth from other places, is well worth it. And when we meet with people, this notion of living benefits, permanent insurance, is something that we broach with almost everybody we meet with. And it's not for everybody, but that conversation should be had. And considering things like your current health, current age, the general state of your finances, all those things play into it. It's not that it's inexpensive, but it is one of those more well-rounded wealth and asset protection tools that we can offer you without having to get into the trust world. It's kind of a simple, more entry-level kind of a way to do it. But it will protect you against, specifically premature death, that major health crisis, which can assault a retirement plan and your wealth quite quickly.
With that, I just want to say, the nature of insurance really is protection. That's whether we're talking about something more complex on the estate planning side, rudimentary on just general life insurance, or really protecting you from, heart attack, stroke, those kind of scenarios. Just think about right now the house that you have, the car that you're driving. Those are a couple of the most easy places that you can find yourself underinsured. And most of the time, those are super simple kinds of protection to put in place for yourself. If you don't really have access to that or need some help with that, Sarah Vasani and Eric Morton here at Brayshaw Financial Group are amazing and can help you really navigate the property and casualty side of this as well. Life insurance, awesome. Let's also make sure that you're protected just inside a lot of the stuff that you're doing on a daily basis and gets overlooked. How many people we talk to that, buy the house and it's their first house or second house and they get, the minimum put in place, but they don't get an umbrella policy or whatever the parts and pieces are that they really should have to make sure that if something happens that they're going to be okay. It's not going to, it's not going to ruin their financial future. You're listening to Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. And while we are, thank you for going and subscribing to Money on Tap in the podcast world. We really appreciate that. That helps us out. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Seth Cressman with Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100 and enjoy a user-friendly platform with diverse ranges of investment options. Visit Brayshaw Financial Group and start your investment journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about protecting your assets. This is all about wealth preservation and strategies that you can participate. The topic of the show, and yes, we are talking about some higher level wealth, and that's a part of it, but we're also talking about just, the person that has just gotten started with their family, getting life insurance in place. They just got married. Getting life insurance in place, getting a review on what your property and casualty is on whatever you own. Do you have jewelry? Is that insured? There's a lot of different parts inside of that insurance conversation that really apply to everyone, whether you're, looking at, family limited partnerships. Maybe that's not you. We get it. But there's a part of this conversation that applies, and that's important for you. And with that, we're really going to roll into another piece here that's just, it's critical. This is one of those places that I will say has been maligned within the industry of financial protection or financial planning. And it's understandable because it has products, and it has had people out there selling these products without really the consideration of the full plan. And that's what we want to make sure that's put into place first, right? We talked about planning first. Well, this is just a part of. These are all tools that can be a part of what's important for you. And with that, I'm about to say it, annuities.
Yeah, that's a word that gets a lot of heat sometimes. And we're advocates for them in general, but with the acknowledgement that they're not for everybody. They certainly are not. But there are some protections that come in place with that, with whatever you invest inside of an annuity, much like the life insurance, right? So we just talked about that as kind of a very simple product. Anybody can access it. Doesn't require engaging an attorney to get something like this done. An annuity similarly falls into suit, where that value that's in the annuity, and more often the income that gets spun off of that annuity in many states will be protected from kind of some of the lower level creditor, bankruptcy, debt issues that you might find yourself into. However, that very much varies by state. So before you take that as advice, make sure that you've gotten the lay of the land locally speaking and understand what protections are offered there. If that's a consideration of purchasing the annuity beyond the simpler advantages of guaranteed lifetime income, tax deferral, the ability to spread that out over a lifetime, or you and your spouse for that matter as well. So, there's some basic components of it that we find valuable for a lot of people, but above and beyond that there are some other layers of protection that may apply in this kind of asset protection strategy conversation as well.
Yeah, I think the thing about annuities that are just so misunderstood is it's like the life insurance world. The word annuity just has like somebody got burnt by one or heard about something like that, and they don't understand all the complexities of the concepts around insurance, because the word annuity just means guarantee to pay. An insurance company backs something, but the intricacy of asset protection inside some of these annuities, depending on the state, against creditors and other claims, can be tremendously valuable if it works for you, because it's just like your 401k is protected from creditors. Depending on the state and so forth, your annuity could be protected for the other assets. And so a lot of people don't realize that and don't have that wherewithal. And if you can get, some of these annuities are open architecture, they're low or no fee, and you get that protection on top of a no-fee product potentially. Like, there's just so many different things out there before you write these things off. The asset protection side of these things is like almost second to none on some scenarios and situations. So I think that's a big deal. Kind of one of the last things here we have today is homesteads. Depending on the state you're in, there are some homestead rights where you can protect your house or protect a personal property asset that against creditors, and that is a big deal. And I know people that actually, move to various states and buy a house there, and just for homestead protection, just to make sure there's some background. And they may not have any idea that they're going to have an issue or whatever, but they do it just to make sure that they have another asset protection piece, kind of like the asset protection trust we talked about earlier. As we kind of close out the show and we talk about, all of these different things, the limited liability companies, the asset protection trusts, the family limited partnerships, the various titling of your accounts from tenancy by the entirety or joint tenants with rights of survivorship or tenants in common, how to, utilize and manage your retirement funds through bankruptcy, the clever concepts around life insurance and using that to mitigate from, various claims against you and still being able to access those funds. Whether it's an annuity and an investment strategy or just protecting your house and strategizing where you live, I think what's being missed in the conversation is, as we talked about earlier, the planning piece between all of these things coming together for you. Because if you don't plan, your assets are in jeopardy. And I think that's the piece that people don't really understand, is that, trying to just maneuver through this yourself, you're either going to go down the wrong road, spend a lot of money on attorneys and CPAs and so forth for something you do or don't need, and potentially do it all wrong. And getting some professional help to try to figure out how to bring these strategies into line for you. And guys, look, this is the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about kind of the ABCs of asset protection. And if you're just listening to this today and saying, wow, I've never heard of that, or, oh, wow, I need to know more about that, trust me, you're not ready. And if you need to know about these things, this is the first place you should call, because utilizing these and trying to find out what other asset protection strategies we have in the background to help you mitigate losing your assets is super important to give us a buzz about.
Yeah, I wanted to say in terms of the annuities, too, we're in a really interesting place with annuities. A lot of the time, these annuities have had, some guaranteed benefits and an income side or a death benefit side that has grown. And the underlying asset that the numbers have been driven off of, or the original deposit was made off of, has maybe just kind of held tight. It really hasn't done much. So let's say, for instance, the annuity has, let's say, $1 million in it, and the death benefit has grown to $300,000, and there's really no need for the asset. So there's no income that's needing to get taken from this asset. Right now, there's some great opportunities to basically refinance that and kind of capture what's changed in the marketplace inside of annuities with death benefits, with interest on fixed opportunities on the fixed income account side. There's a lot more happening now than there was 10 years ago when interest rates were what they were, or for the last 5 years when they were what they were. And so I want people to just be aware to take a look at those and see if bring them in. Let's take a look and see if there's an opportunity for you to really increase what the purpose, or redefine what the purpose of that was. And, just take some, maybe there's nothing right now for you, but there is a lot of opportunity to refinance those.
Yeah, it kills me that, so many people are operating out there with the unknown. And there's so much people can do, and I think they just lack that's one of the core purposes of our show, is just to educate people. If you don't get the help from us, get it from somebody, but take action, because there is so much you can do to address protecting your assets and really helping yourself find the success in retirement, estate planning, all of those realms. It's all there for you. You just have to go take a step.
You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551. or info@yourmoneyontap.com. This has been a Protect Your Assets show. Thank you so much for subscribing to Money on Tap. When you're doing that, please let us know so we can send you some Money on Tap gear. And all of that to say, be successful in your investing. We cannot wait to be here with you next week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of Osaic Wealth Incorporated. Osaic Wealth Incorporated and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.